Hey guys, and welcome back. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how to study. While we discuss, I'll be playing some of my recent gesture and figure studies, so you can at least watch something enjoyable if you don't like what I say. If you enjoy this content though, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, and share. It really helps out. If you recall from my previous video, the first thing I had on my self-study lesson plan was to learn how to study. And in that video, if you look in the description, you'll find links to a few other videos that discuss very specific topics. But I want to conclude on some of the key points that I learned, so some of my key takeaways. And also, I want to add some discussion about effectiveness and productivity. The first thing I want to discuss is focus. You see, there's this fallacy that says you can multitask, especially women, they can multitask. But everyone has to multitask. Managers have to multitask. All these things, we're trying to do 1,000 things at once. The simple truth is you can't. What you can do is you can switch topics. And if you're not doing very difficult things, then you can switch topics quickly. But if you're doing very difficult things, there's a time it takes to get all that information that you're needing for whatever it is you're doing into your short-term memory. That takes time. Like it can take 15 minutes to get back on topic with something, to really recall everything that you needed to recall so that you can actually do the work. And if it's an even more complicated thing, like what if you were an engineer or something, maybe it takes more than that. Every time you switch topics, you kind of have to dump that short-term memory and you change your focus to something else, because we're not a computer. Thank God for that. We're not a computer. We can't focus on 1,000 things at once. We're not multi-threaded. We're one thread of active thinking. And then a lot of things that don't really require you to think. You can, walk and talk at the same time. But when you first learn how to drive a car, you're having to actively think about it. You should not really be talking and driving at the same time, especially when you first learn. Once it becomes easier and you're no longer actively thinking about it, well, it's easier to actually talk to your passenger while you drive. If you want to go deeper into this subject, I suggest taking a look at a book called Deep Work. It discusses how so many of us, myself included, all of us, we rarely get into that state of mind where we are giving it everything we have. But if you can train yourself to be in that state where you're really focused on that one thing, that's when your potential becomes unlimited. You can really do more than the average person. That's where some people can do a day's worth of work in maybe 2 hours of super intense focus. So I would suggest, as a key element of how to study, is to focus. That would include shutting off social media if you need to, turning off the TV, shutting the door to your room, and simply getting to work. Maybe you can put on some music that isn't too distracting and just study. But ironically, for me, sometimes I even turn the music off because I want every single brain cell focused on what I'm trying to learn. I want to master it. Of course, I'm saying this while I also want to, I started streaming on Twitch, which I'll have a link to that in the description as well. So I'm streaming on Twitch and I'm doing my studies on Twitch, but I'm trying to build some kind of community. So perhaps I'm handicapping myself in that. Which, yeah, I probably am. I could probably learn faster if I just did it myself, but I also want to build a community. I want to encourage people to grow. So hopefully it doesn't hold me down too much. So after you're able to focus, well, then you need to actually study. What's that mean? Is it just, copying over and over and over again? I don't think so. I mean, copying can be part of your plan, but, I've heard it said that if you can put something into your own words, that's when you actually know it. And if you're always copying, you're not putting it into your own words. But you need to be able to use it, to understand it, to have mastery over it. And that's where you need to put it into your own words, or for the sake of drawing, you would need to be able to draw it from scratch without looking at anything, without tracing, and then try to change it. This is where iteration comes in. Where, say, you learn how to draw an arm in like very simple shapes like cylinders and stuff. Now try to draw the arm in 100 different positions from imagination using the simple shapes. That's how you would gain mastery over that. Maybe you try to change the the size of the arm. Maybe it's shorter or thicker, thinner. Maybe it's really muscly. Maybe it's really, weak. Maybe there's a lot of fat. Maybe it's just skin and bone. But all of those practicing around that arm and the overall shape and size of it, that's that iteration process where you're trying to put it into your own words, and you're trying to do that without reference. Then once you're done, you go back and look at the reference again. Go back and maybe copy the reference again, because copying is certainly a valid part of the process. It's just not the whole process. So go back and study it again after you've done a whole bunch of iteration. Maybe you get the book out and copy the shapes again. Try to make sure you're doing it right. Compare it to your actual iterations. And maybe then do it again. Do a whole nother set of arms. Once you analyze it, compare it, and see where are you making mistakes. This reminds me of another book I read. It was talking about, I think it was it might have been How to Learn, but it could have been about critical thinking. I don't remember the name of the book, but one thing that they mentioned was that if you want to learn something, it is best for you to try to think of the solution first before you go actually learn the proper solution. Because even if you're wrong, you will still remember the truth better. I don't know how that works, but that's what they say the studies show. And that's fascinating. And that's where, for me, I feel more comfortable, study some stuff first, but then go try to iterate your own without reference. Try to make your own where you're trying to find the solutions, and then go back and compare that to reference afterward to correct yourself. And then you can do it again with a better understanding. And in this way, it'd be like looking at a proportion chart where you have just the static standing man or whatever. So you can see how long the arm is, and maybe you see the side view of the arm. Now draw the arm at an angle, right? You don't even have a reference for that right now. You've seen the front of the arm and the side of the arm. Great. Draw the arm at an angle. Draw the arm coming right out at you. Draw it flexing his bicep. Change the position of everything using what you can from the very limited reference you have. Try to make something new with that. And then once you're done, then go compare it to reference more similar to what you're trying to draw, and then you can correct it. So that's a lot about iteration. It's something that I really took away. This is actually the topic that was really discussed and given examples that you can look at. If you look back at my previous video, it's in the description. But the basic concept is that, to iterate on the idea. One thing that can really help with this, it's like you're trying to understand the proper form of the things you're drawing. You're not just trying to draw an outline. And when you can understand the form of the object, you can then have mastery over it. So if I see an airplane and it's, kind of flying at me, and I need to have that airplane, or maybe I have a schematic, and I can see the airplane from the front and the side, but I need the airplane flying at a weird angle where I can see the bottom a little bit, and it's at a 3/4 view, and there's smoke coming out the back. Somehow I need to be able to draw that. And actually, one time I was talking to an artist that worked on one of the original Spider-Mans way back with Tobey Maguire. I don't know if he was an art director on that movie, but I know he was an art director in his career. And one thing he said that a lot of artists struggled with, to where if he was telling me, if I can do this, I'll be much better off, is being able to turn objects in 3D. And that's where, if you can see the front of a plane and the side of a plane, can you draw from 3/4, right? Do you have mastery over that shape? Can you draw it doing anything you want? That's where this iteration can really help with that. As well as other things, obviously. Go study perspective, do other things. But the iteration, you want to be able to have a mastery over those objects so that you can draw them doing whatever you need to do. And if you can, then you will have an advantage over a lot of other artists. That brings to mind another thing where, if you're studying, it may not be appropriate to just simply copy what you're looking at. Let's go back to the arm example. Maybe you're looking at a perfectly drawn, realistic arm. Well, maybe it would help you to break it down into simple shapes so that you can then use those simple shapes to put the arm into any position. And then once you have it in a crazy position, then you can figure out how to add the proper forms on there to make it look realistic. But the deconstruction process, where you're deconstructing how that form is shaped and built, and you understand like how the elbow works and how the bicep works, and you understand these things, that again can help you have mastery over that subject. You may not want to do a strict copy, although again, that can be part of the process, but you want to do more than that. You want to understand it, understand how it works. That's iteration, that's deconstructing things, that's comparing what you do from imagination back to some reference after the fact to see where you could do better. It's all these things combined. You may be asking yourself, how do you know what to study? That's a great question. There are a few ways to go about this. What I did and what I suggest is to have a goal of what you want to achieve. For me, like I want to be able to draw imaginative scenes, from imagination as much as possible. Again, I'm not against using reference. I just want to do as much as I can before getting to that point. And my end goal is to make my own world from scratch. And I think the most important thing here is that I know the end, like the style I'm going for, my end goal as far as how I want these things to look. And if I try to draw that right now, I end up kind of struggling with a lot of things. Like I'm trying to learn robot design in addition to learning landscapes, in addition to learning composition, and it's a lot to take in all at once. It would be more effective to pinpoint something that I can then go fix, that I can go learn and master. Now, assuming I did complete some artwork of what I'm trying to do, I can still look at my artwork and be honest with myself about where it compares to what I want to be able to do. And maybe I have, many artists that I look at where it's like, these are people I want to be a peer to. And I can see where I'm falling short. That can help me identify things I need to study. Or perhaps you struggle in one particular area of drawing. Like if you're trying to draw people and the proportions are always off. Well, go study those boring proportion charts. Despite how boring they are, go memorize how long, the upper arm is from the shoulder to the elbow. Memorize where the elbow falls within the torso. Memorize where the wrist falls along the body. That way you can get over that one little tiny thing. You pinpoint the problem so that you can find an answer to that problem. And then that goes into your repertoire and you can do more work, more complicated work. And that's no longer an issue for you. You can find the next thing because there's always something else. You can find the next thing that causes you difficulty and then you can go solve that. But I highly suggest keeping it simple. You don't have to learn all topics at once. For example, it can be useful to learn values first with just black and white and obviously grays, black and white grays. Leave color out of it. Now, eventually, you'll want to be able to do color with values together. But color is a complicated topic, and so is value. But it's a lot easier if you focus one at a time. In this case, you would study value first. And once you understand value, then you can add color to it. And really, you're just practicing something you already know and adding color as the thing you're trying to study and just seeing how that interacts. That's a lot easier than trying to do it all at the same time, all at once. Now, the next piece of this would be, are you actually getting stuff done? I often hear it's like, well, I'm not inspired, so I'll wait till I'm inspired, or maybe I'm not motivated. There's a few things you can do about that. First of all, about motivation, it can be really helpful to set yourself small goals, small attainable goals that will lead up to the end result that you're looking for. Like football teams, their goal is not every single time they get the ball to make the touchdown. Their goal is to get the first down, which eventually leads to the touchdown. And that goes back to, if you can pinpoint specific things you need to study, well, that's a small goal. You can accomplish that. It feels good when you accomplish it. You feel like you're successful, that you're making progress, and that can be motivating. And in regard to inspiration, if you wait for inspiration to kick in, it most likely won't work. And here's a quote that's worth considering. Think this through, okay? I only write when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, it strikes at 9 o'clock every morning. Does inspiration really strike at 9 a.m.? No, likely not. But this person gets to work every morning at 9 a.m. regardless. And that's the point of the quote. Now, before I forget, I heard this quote from the book The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. I highly suggest reading this book to further delve into this topic. It's an extremely good book. You can consider this homework. The point is, if you want to be inspired, you have to get to work. I consider it similar to how some people have so many business ideas. And it's impressive. Like, how do you have so many ideas? And often they're people in business, as in their minds are on that and they're working on it all the time. Or what if you're buying a new car? You want a green car. You're going to see every green car that you ever run across as you go around town, because now your mind's on it. And if you want to be inspired, well, if you actually get to work and you're trying to come up with ideas, your mind's on it. You're going to start having ideas. Now, maybe you want to bring around a small journal, so if you can't actually act on that idea right then, you can write it down for later on, because sometimes that blank page can make all ideas go out of your head. I can't even count the times that I've had that happen, where I have all these ideas throughout the day. I go home, I want to start drawing, and then all my ideas are gone. Keeping a journal can be a great thing to solve that problem. And the other thing is to simply start. Just start drawing. To give another example from writing, if you are trying to write a book and you don't know what to write, you just start writing words on the page. And it doesn't have to directly relate to what you're even trying to draw, what you're trying to write. You just start writing. Maybe you start writing about your day. Maybe you just get the words flowing. And then later on, you can go delete that. Because eventually you're going to get yourself in the flow. You're going to start writing, and you can get onto the subject that you're supposed to be writing about. And the same thing applies to artwork. Just start drawing. And even if you throw the first page away, you can, get back to the topic you're supposed to be drawing pretty quick once you just get in the flow of moving that pencil on the page. Another thing to consider to be effective in your studies is to have spaced repetition. Do not study something once and just say, done. I'm done. Never again. Never again shall I study figures. No, you need to study it again and again and again and again. But you should see that you're getting better each time. Maybe in the beginning, you're just trying to get basic forms and gestures. And later on, you're studying anatomy. And then later on, you're doing a fully developed figure from imagination. Later on, you're doing super dynamic poses. And maybe later on, you're doing different body types. Maybe you're drawing different creatures and stuff. Like maybe you're doing humanoid aliens or something else. You're applying the knowledge that you've learned to just completely different things now. But you still want to be able to come back and practice it over and over again. And if you are developing a lesson plan, which again, I talked about this in the last video, if you're going to develop your own lesson plan, you should really consider building in spaced repetition. Okay, I think that brings us to the end. If you found this helpful and you want to see more, please hit the like, subscribe, and hit the bell. If there's anything else that you want me to cover on this topic, because I'm sure there's more things I could go into or more things I could go into more depth, feel free to ask in the comments and we'll see what we can do. And with that, take care and God bless.